welcome to the Ride With Us podcast. This is episode 1, a podcast dedicated to the Prescott Rodeo grounds, its history, traditions, some storytelling, and all the things going on at the Prescott Rodeo grounds. I'm your host, Greg Mengarelli, and today we have Jim Dewey Brown, the general manager of Prescott Frontier Days, with us. Jim's been the general manager for 3 years at the world's oldest rodeo. He also is the commissioner of college rodeo, which is kind of a big deal. And we're fortunate to have Jim with us on the show today. Jim, tell us a little bit about how you got to Prescott Frontier Days. You've been here a couple years now, right?
Yep. So 3 years. This will be my 4th rodeo coming up. But yeah, it's quite the story. So, I started riding Broncs in high school, late in life, late in the game compared to a lot of my compadres. Went to college, rode Broncs for my coach there at Tarleton State University. And from there, that's kind of where I got, I guess, my passion for rodeo production. Mm-hmm. And then wanted to be a rodeo coach. And so I shifted once I graduated with my master's. Went and got a coaching job, got a real job. It's funny, kind of looking back. This is my one funny story. I didn't want to go to college, and my dad took me out middle of the ranch and stuck me on 3 miles of fence and said, "This is going to be your life. You don't do something with yourself. This is going to be your life. You're going to be building fence the rest of your life." All right, I'll go to college. So fast forward, I get a coaching gig at Las Cruces, New Mexico State University. First thing I had to do was build fence.
Couldn't get away from
it. So I spent 6 years in college just to go build fence again.
That's funny.
So yeah, and I was there I was the first ever rodeo coach at New Mexico State. They'd had advisors, and they were one of the original founding members of the NIRA.
Okay.
And, but they had always just kind of struggled and,
yep.
Just been a member, but
yep.
they didn't have a full-time coach that's all they did. So
the home ranch is in New Mexico where you grew up?
Yeah. Home ranch is in New Mexico. I actually was born in Vegas. My dad had a little ranch in Pahrump till I was about 6 weeks old. Then we moved to Seligman. He got a job as a wagon boss there on the 00, and I was there till I was about almost 2. And then the guy that owned the 00 at the time, he bought a ranch in New Mexico and shipped Dad and the family out there, and that's kind of where we ended up. In 2002, right when I graduated from college, Mom and Dad, they bought their own ranch. Off of,
yeah,
but it was only technically it's a neighbor. One of the pastures from the ranch I grew up on was neighbor to this other ranch. So,
right.
But it's about 10 miles down the road. So
I want to get back to the path to Prescott, but before I do, you still go back to the home ranch and work in the cattle and.
Yeah. So Fight Ranch is the name of the ranch, Fight Ranch LLC. It's like I said, it's an LLC, and all of us are partners on it. Myself, my brother, my mom, my dad, and my daughter.
Yeah.
And so we're all equal partners. And so,
yeah.
So I got to go back every now and then. This is actually the 3rd year I've actually missed spring branding just because I'm so busy with, rodeos coming up and all this other stuff we're doing. So yeah.
Yeah.
But I make it for summer branding.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Well, you're a busy guy. We're going to get into just all the things you're doing. Yep. Before Prescott, though, you were managing a rodeo in New Mexico.
Yeah, I'll keep going back. Like I said, I coached for 13 and a half years at New Mexico State, and got to the point where I'd done everything but win a national team title, and I was getting burnt out. Basically, I loved the kids. That was my favorite thing that's the one thing I still miss about coaching was the kids. But I was over the bureaucracy of the university system, and just it was time to go and spread my wings and do something else. So I took that love of production, and I was kind of a gypsy for a year. Worked for Kirsten Vold Rodeo Company. I was a flank man it was about 6 or 8 months.
So let me help our listeners. Kirsten Vold Rodeo Company has been the stock contractor at the world's oldest rodeo for how long?
51 years.
51 years. And Kirsten now runs it. Her dad started it.
Yep.
And so they've been a long time partner with the rodeo. And then you said flank man. People don't know what that is.
Yeah. So basically I set the cue for the horse to start bucking.
Yep.
Yep. In layman's terms, I guess.
Yep.
So I was flank man, shoot boss, whatever you want to call it. And, I worked for her all summer and went to the NFR. That was the one time I went to the NFR. Go me.
What year was that?
2016.
Okay.
And so that was one of my, it wasn't my first experience with Prescott Frontier Days, but it was as on the other side of being a contestant on the production side. That was my first dabble into, I guess, intro to World's Oldest Rodeo.
Yep.
And
you were in saddle bronc at the NFR. Yep.
Well, I was flank man.
Flank man.
Man at the
Gotcha.
NFR.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't make it. I didn't make it as a contestant.
Okay.
In 2000 was my 99 and 2000 was my best year riding broncs. 99 actually won Prescott Frontier Days, and then in 2000, and that was the year I went to the college finals. And 2000, I went to the college finals, and right after the college finals in 2000, I had a bad one, and he tore up my knee pretty bad. Of course, stupid college kid, no insurance. It wasn't at a pro rodeo, so I didn't have that insurance to fall on, and I just had to let it heal on its own because obviously I couldn't couldn't go to the hospital and get it fixed up because I didn't have no money.
Right.
So that kind of derailed my aspirations of going big and going hard. So.
But you have 2 buckles from Prescott Frontier Days.
So, like I said, I let it heal up, worked hard to build it back up. And then in 2003, I came back and did a repeat. So
which buckle you have on today?
99.
99.
Yeah. So funny story about that one. I got the 99 buckle. I've worn it every day since. When I won the 2003 rodeo, I actually split it with Craig Latham. I don't remember, we were 80 something, both of us. And he originally got the buckle, won the coin toss to get the buckle that they made. And the committee had another one made, shipped to my house. Well, at the time, I was living in Las Cruces, and the address on my PRCA card was the ranch address. They shipped it to the ranch, and Dad says, you got a package today. I was like, let's see what it is. He opens it. It's the world's oldest rodeo buckle. It goes directly on his belt, and I never got to wear it. So
he kept it.
So I always wanted one of these.
I imagine he's paid a few entry fees over his time, so he probably earned it.
Yeah, he earned it for sure. So
no, that's good.
Yeah.
That makes me think, Jim, as a spectator, if you put your I'm a spectator hat on, just how coveted that buckle is. They're coming for the money, and we put on a good show and a good experience, but that buckle means a lot to spectators.
Yeah, it's one of those, I don't know, it's hard to explain how, it's the world's oldest rodeo buckle. Yeah. And I don't know how to explain how coveted it is, and how everybody, they want to win the rodeo, obviously, but they want to take that buckle home. So
Yep.
So.
Well, you've been 3 years running our world's oldest rodeo and general manager for Prescott Frontier Days, and a lot of milestones, a lot of records, a lot of changes.
Yep.
So why don't you give us a little flavor of that? I know, the first thing that comes to my mind is just what you've done with sponsors. It's just been incredible.
Yep. Yeah. So, the sponsorship, it was behind the times. The whole rodeo was behind the times. It was, desperate need for, I guess, a new outlook. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, I came in 21, and I think it was the second board meeting. and I took the board down to, which will fall back to whenever I was there as a worker. I took the board down to the back pins, and 5 years previous, as working the back pins, loading the Broncs and the bulls and running stock up and back and forth, there was a particular gate that you had to shove high and kick low at the same time. I kicked the table to get it open. Right. And that was how you opened that gate.
Yeah.
And I went down there and I showed him that gate, and that was the exact same way how that gate was to be opened every time. And it's been like that it had been like that for over 5 years.
Yeah.
So I just explained to the board that, hey, this isn't good. This is, we've got to do something. We've got to bring our equipment up to modern standards. Yep. And so that following year, we were able to secure the new arena, and we put that up for 2022, and we had it up, and
it's a big improvement, and
huge improvement.
Jim, I don't know that spectators, or listeners may always fully understand kind of what that looks like, because they're not back there. They do see the main arena, they see the rope and box and some of those things, but it was really a safety issue. It really
was. There was a hazard. It was hazardous to our livestock. Yeah, it really was. And it wasn't, just the panels. It was, things were just falling down and falling apart. And that's what happens after 50 years. Those panels were 50 years old. Right. So, obviously, I want to dress it up and make it all look good and clean. Yep. And
you're talking about opening that gate, and it reminded me, Jim, the rodeo before you started, you were at our rodeo.
I was.
And you were working the rodeo. And this is something that I appreciate about Jim Dewey Brown, and that is, I remember you were pushing steers up in the arrow pen, up into the roping box, and I was just thinking, this guy, he aspires to be the general manager, and he's got the experience, pedigree, and everything to do it, but he's also out there doing every aspect of the rodeo. I'm sure you've done, and I watched you do that summer, and it was very impressive. Just seeing you being willing to do whatever it takes to put on a rodeo.
Doing what I've done, and kind of made a career out of it, from CNFR to college rodeo and, the circuit finals and, just all the events that I've been involved with. I got to get my quote. If you're too big to do the little things, you're too little to do the big things. Yeah. And so that's kind of been my philosophy on my crew, any crew that I have, any staff that I put together, any team that I put together. That's if you're not willing to go scrub the toilet, then I don't need you. Yep. So, because if you just want to be out in front, and you don't want to do the stuff that takes to get there, then you don't need to be on my team. So.
Well, I think that speaks volumes to all the folks that work with you. And, we have so many volunteers, and when you're motivating volunteers and recruiting volunteers, that I think really resonates with them to see the general manager out there every time there's a work day or putting that arena together. That was a heck of a deal to get done that year.
We had a bid that we could have brought somebody in to put it up for us, and probably would have lined up a little bit better than what we did. But it was, what better way to get to know your facility than to know how it goes together.
Yeah. So 137 years, we're going to see that rodeo happen here this summer. Prescott Traditions is the theme. Talk a little bit about your passion for our past, our history, and kind of how important that is to you.
Sure. Yeah. It's the world's oldest rodeo. It's basically the birthplace of modern professional rodeo as we know it. Obviously there's other older events around the country, but with the criteria that made us what we are, we've got to hold ourselves to that standard, but also honor everything that came before. So like the team roping out of the same chute, the the big grand entry. And if Harry had his way, we'd probably have a brass band playing during
Right.
each ride.
I remember
that. That was one thing he always wanted to bring back, and he always told me about that. So I don't think that's going to come back, Harry.
Yeah.
But, So, but those things like that, like this year's, we're honoring Lawton Champy. This guy, Wilson, you might be able to help me on this one. 1926 was his first one, and 1941 was his last one. He had like 12 or 13 championships over 15 years.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. And it wasn't just all in one event. It was every event pretty much. So, it was pretty cool. So, and just the history behind this rodeo is just you can't. It's too good to not utilize and to honor. So
yeah, there's some unique things that we do there. Jim mentioned the team roping, and just so our listeners understand, typically when you see the steer come out, there's a header on one side of that chute and a heeler on the other side, but not in Prescott. In Prescott, they both come out of the same side. Right side of the steer.
Yeah, which is, it's kind of a logistical nightmare anyway, team roping period, but, sticking them in the same box, you kind of got to give that separation, which we had a custom panel made for it, just for it.
Yep.
And then, it's unique. Sometimes there's going to be some wrecks because healers don't generally run at a rope barrier.
Right.
Like World Series and the jackpot type stuff, they'll run at electric barrier. And obviously the rope barrier might
right
shake things up a little bit. So
well, I think the board did a great job bringing you on. I'm probably biased, I guess, but I just think you really run a great balance of honoring our past, honoring that tradition, and yet we got to move forward.
Yep.
There's things that need to be improved. We need to work on the experience. And, you've had 2 seasons of sellout crowds, which kind of speaks for itself, I think, in terms of the production. What are you passionate about? What really turns you on with the rodeo and gets you excited about that production?
Well, I can't really, pinpoint it to one thing, because, I've always liked putting on rodeos, putting on an event. But, knowing that I did my best and the fan was happy and the contestant was happy, I'm competitive. I'm really, really competitive. I want to win. Doesn't matter what it is. I want to be. I want to be the best. And that's something internally that I have to deal with and struggle with as well.
Right.
So, obviously you're not going to win everything you do, but you want to do. As long as I put my best forward, that's where I think that's where that passion comes from. Is, and then of course just growing up around rodeo and ranching and cattle and horses. You just. What's the saying? You don't work a day in your life if you do what you love.
Exactly. Doesn't feel like work, right?
It's not building fence.
Yeah. So from the contestant side, we've really grown. You've really grown the numbers of contestants over these last 3 years. Why is it? What happened?
Well, so that when I don't even remember the first year I was there, we were 500, 600, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And then in 22, I think we had 690 something, and we fell down a little bit. Last year we were 670, but we increased some other contestants like the mutton busting and the cow punchers, Broncs, and wild horse race. So the contestants are there, but obviously the biggest thing is you throw more money at it. Give them an opportunity to make more money at your rodeo.
You've done that.
They're going to come. So when I came, it was 15,000, and over the last 3 years, we've got it up to 19,000 per event.
Right. So Jim's talking about there's contestant fees they pay. Right. What's a typical entry fee?
I think, just say the bronc riding. I think the entry fees for the bronc riding at this rodeo are like $290. I think.
Yeah. So you have that. Yeah. Multiply that times the number of bronc riders and 8 performances.
Yeah. So figure probably minimum 75, 80 contestants. And then, so not all that money, but majority of that money goes into the pot, which was 19,000.
Yep.
And so then you divide that by, I think they pay 8 holes.
So we say added money to the entry fee pot as well, which is, it's important because there's so many rodeos going on over the 4th of July, right? A lot of options, and most of them are north.
Yeah. So that's the biggest struggle that we have as a rodeo, as a pro rodeo, is that we're the furthest south 4th of July rodeo going on. You've got Cody, Greeley, Red Lodge, and there's a whole bunch of, and they're all within like 4 hours of each other,
right,
up there in the north. And so, if those guys wanted to stay, like, those 4 days, 1st through the 4th, they wanted to stay close to Cody, and they could basically go from Cody and go to all of these rodeos in those 4 days and make the same amount of money, if not more, than coming down to us for 1 or 2 days or however long it takes them to get here.
Yeah.
So it's a business decision that they have to make, but that's where we come in to dangle that carrot.
Yep.
That it's a business decision that
really
they need to really look hard at, because we have so much added that would help.
Right. Jim, you're passionate about Cowboy Crisis Fund and kind of your youth initiative. Can you talk a little bit about both of those?
Yeah. So, so the JCCF, the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund, it's obviously it's a really good program that helps injured cowboys, which I could have benefited this, back in 2000.
Right.
But obviously they didn't have it. But yeah, so how I got involved with that is I've got a friend, her name's Julie Jutton. She's the general manager of JCCF. And Julie and I have been dragging each other to each other's events for the last, 10 years or so. We've been buddies. One year at Casper, it was, I think it was whatever fire, it was in Colorado Springs. There was a fire, I think it was I don't remember the name of the town, but it was right there outside of Colorado Springs. And it decimated the equine.
Was that 2013?
I think so.
Yeah. My son was on that fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, it's Black something. I can't remember the name of the town. But anyway, so Julie she was actually working with the PRCA at the time, and they were doing this outreach, to try to help, the displaced animals. And so I was just leaving the college finals. She calls me, and I had actually taken my truck and I took a trailer with my motorcycle on there that year. Just the only year I ever did it. And it was just kind of fortuitous that it happened. And so we had all of this hay and we had all of this grain, and I basically built this castle around my motorcycle full of, and hauled it from Casper down to Colorado Springs to Norris Penrose. And we unloaded it there. And that's where I first met Julie. And since then we've been buddies, and like I said, we drag each other into stuff that and when she got the JCCF, there was this idea that, hey, we've got we want to do outside of the box things other than just cutting a check to JCCF. Sure. We want to bring the community involved in it. Like this last year we did Whiskey, Women, and Wine. And
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that one was fun. Yeah.
What could go wrong with
what could go wrong with whiskey and wine and women? So yeah. And then we did a cornhole tournament, which Julie, she was like, I want to do a cornhole tournament, and I was like, well, let's do one. We're going to do one. So so there we are.
Good.
So yeah, then there's other stuff that we get involved with JCCF. We help out with the we donate a lot to their cause for their raffles and that kind of thing. Yep. So,
just one of the ways that Prescott Frontier Days kind of reaches out, beyond Prescott, gives back, somewhat maybe because of your own experience needing that kind of help. And I commend you for doing that. Youth initiatives, give us a little flavor of what's going on.
So youth initiative, it's nothing new, really. I would say it's nothing new. There's new stuff that we're doing, but the committee's always been involved with some sort of youth project or youth youth outreach. We host the Arizona High School Finals, state finals. We host the Arizona Junior Rodeo Association Finals. That one's in April, May, and then of course the high school finals is in end May, 1st of June. But this last year I created a committee, and that's their sole purpose is to think of ways to reach out to the youth of the community and give back to the youth. And so we did a PRCA camp, skills camp, and it focused more on the rough stock side, so bulls, broncs, and bears. I think they did a little steer wrestling at ours this year, and we did it during the AJRA rodeo, and so there was a lot more kids that were able to benefit off that skills camp. And then of course we launched the Junior Ambassador program this year, or this last year, and we had 5 junior ambassadors, and they're basically their job was is to kind of get to know whatever aspect of the rodeo production that they're interested in, and I think Kim, she had a couple in the fashion side, and then I think Donna had a couple for the marketing side. I had one on the rodeo production side, and then we had one in the sports medicine side. Yep. And so we shifted them around and got to train them a little bit, and they do, and I can't remember their handle, but they have an Instagram page, Junior Ambassador page. And so that was their job during the rodeo, was that they had to post and get.
It's like an internship of sorts, right? To give them a taste of what it looks like to produce different aspects of the rodeo.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and after that, it had originally intended there was going to be 2 $1,000 scholarships and 2 $500 scholarships. But because those kids did really good on our very first year, we gave all 5 of them $1,000 scholarship to the college of their choice.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive. Yep. Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that you're doing that skills camp, because, rodeo's not an easy sport necessarily to get into. If you grew up like you on a ranch, it's a little more natural. But a lot of these kids, here in the Quad City area, they don't have the opportunity to just even get a taste of what that's like. Yeah,
and that's a perfect place to get a taste of it. There's, and those are the 4 cheapest and easiest events to get into. Yep. The 3 rough stock and the steer wrestling. Right. You can borrow a horse in the steer wrestling, but like if you were going to tie down or team rope or barrel race, you're gonna have to have the horse trailer, the truck, the mom and dad to drive you, and the horse. And
I've seen some of these rigs. Yeah, it's
obscene.
Is that what you grew up with?
No. Go back to this is my sophomore or my junior year in it was my second high school rodeo that I went to, and I was playing football. So we left Carrizozo, little bitty town in New Mexico, and we drove to Red River, and it's like 5-hour drive. We get there, it's up in the mountains. Dad rolls out the teepee. We had the old cowboy teepee, and we spent the night on the side of the park in Red River, New Mexico.
Oh, that's good.
And then of course, you see the rigs coming in now. It's like a Holiday Inn Express driving into the parking lot.
Right.
Here I am, my stock trailer, my teepee. Roll out my bedroll.
Brushing your teeth in your horse water bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good. What else would you like to get out there for our listeners today?
I don't know. There's so much. I mean, I keep talking. So
yeah. Well, I want to go back to Jim Dewey Brown competing in the PRCA, and you're up and down the road. You're going to all these rodeos. There's got to be a story in there somewhere of a crazy thing that happened at a rodeo, or maybe even on the road. I don't know. You guys put in a lot of miles.
Yeah, when I started, I got my card in '97, and so obviously that was my sophomore year in college, and so I'm in Stephenville. I mean, I'm in a completely different state. I don't know the kind of the background in the rodeos around there. So I'm jumping in with guys that are from there, and yeah, there was several, stupid college kid shit that you do. So, it's one of those things.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and as I progressed, got better in my skill level, and then got going down the road. I traveled with Tom Reeves a little bit back in the day, and it was funny. We were going to Pecos, and so I left Stephenville, me and him, and I think we were almost to Odessa, or we were outside Odessa, out in the flat, and it was desolate. This cop pulls me over, and I'm from New Mexico. Arizona's the same way. You only have to have the one plate on the back. He pulls, I'm a Texas resident at this point, and he pulls me over. He's like, "Where's your front plate?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's in the trunk, maybe." Is that a thing? He's like, "That's a thing." He writes me a ticket and sends me on my way with that plate on there.
Come on.
I was like, "Oh, you kidding me?" But yeah, and then I think it was 2 years later. It was actually at this rodeo, and his name's Rod Warren. We call him Moose, and he was NFR Bronc rider. He's tall. He's like 6'3", 6'4".
Moose.
Like his hands are. This guy could double palm a basketball. Probably. He's just a big guy. And it was in the wild horse race. So this was way before we even got even thinking about. So the beginning of the rodeo, and we're standing in the back of the chutes, and of all people, me next to this guy. I'm tall myself, but this compared to him, I'm a pipsqueak. This horse starts flipping out, and he's rearing up in the chute. And of course, this was before we tied everything in. And he turns towards the back of the chute, and he's swiping. And so I cover Moose.
You're going to
with my
protect
little
Moose.
150-pound body. I'm gonna knock him out of the way, and I take a pawing to my back. Basically, this horse pawed the crap out of me, and of course, I didn't do any good that day when I got on my horse, because I was hurting. It really hurt. So, but that was one of my fun injuries.
Wow.
But yeah, so good times. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then another time, I guess it was the softest I've ever been bucked off. Just floated, and I landed on all fours, and I shattered my distal radius.
Really?
I had to have surgery that next day because it destroyed my hand.
You must have been pretty high in the air.
Yeah, it was one of Kirsten's horse. Yeah, this black mare of hers. She just annihilated me. But yeah, it was just the softest I've ever been bucked off.
You're thinking, this is great.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to win anything, obviously. Whistle hadn't blown, but I land on the ground, and $30,000 later, I got plates and screws in my hand.
Thus the need for the Cowboy Crisis Fund.
Just
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
Well, I appreciate you being on, Jim. Really look forward to the 137th edition of the world's oldest rodeo. So glad you could be with us here on Ride With Us. And I'm sure we will have you back for some more stories and updates. Appreciate the opportunity to work with you over there at the rodeo, and look forward to July 1st when we kick off our first performance this year. So
awesome.
Thanks for being on.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on the Ride With Us podcast. This is Greg Mengarelli signing off. We'll see you next month.